of this debt, and that's where the opportunity lies. So today's Zoom at noon is going to be notes at noon, understanding loan pools for sale. So this particular pool came from an asset manager we have a very close relationship with. That's a direct lender in California. Some of their loans
Do
are
you know
made.
what those 60 boxes are? Yeah. I'll grab my computer and I'll tell you exactly what they are.
Hold on a second.
It is.
Sorry about that. Some of our relationships originate the debt. Some of them buy larger pools and then obviously trade them or sell them. This particular pool, I don't know if they've originated themselves or they purchased this at a lower price point, but they gave us access to 52 notes across probably 15 or so states, including, and if this is of interest to anybody, we will send out a full package for everyone that attended the call. So the states include Tennessee, Georgia, Ohio, Michigan, Iowa, North Carolina, Illinois, Missouri, Arizona, South Carolina, Alabama, Maryland, Kentucky, North Carolina, Louisiana, Texas, Pennsylvania, Nevada, Oklahoma, West Virginia, Mississippi, California, and Maine. So if any of those states are of interest to you, obviously let us know and we'll put you on that target list. What we're going to be developing is a big pool of individuals that are interested in these notes. That way, if we know you only want to see notes, for example, Kevin in Pennsylvania, as soon as we get those Pennsylvania notes, we'll be able to direct them to you. If you want to see Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, obviously we'll send them over to you as well. So we really want people to focus on the market that they're actually looking to acquire the notes in or learn more about in the marketplace. Now, if you're a real estate agent, this is the number one way I believe listings are going to be coming about, because when these loans are in default or these loans are being sold, usually there's a reason or there's a problem. I call it a ticking time bomb. And because real estate values have risen so much, there's usually equity left in the property. So by getting access to a distressed note or distressed debt, you could approach that homeowner. You don't have to tell them, you really shouldn't tell them where you got the interest, from. Like, hey, I found this note. I know you're in default. But if you go and have a legitimate professional human conversation with them, they'd be more likely to list their property. So let's get into the presentation today, understanding loan pools for sale. Here's our why, and here's what you need to know. Market liquidity crunch is already here, and it's only going to magnify and intensify as the next 3 years come about. Every day that goes by, we're getting closer and closer to the eruption. So know that the longer you wait to learn this, the further behind the eight ball, and the more you're going to be missing out on everyday opportunities. Part of the reason is, and are, banks and lenders make money by doing new loans. That's how they make their origination fee, their points, and keep turning up capital and raising more capital. Because few new loans are being made, banks, institutions, REITs, funds raised $100 million, but only deployed $50 million. And now they have $50 million sitting there liquid that's not returning the double-digit returns that they were projecting, for example. So then they're starting to return capital back to their investors, which is reducing their management fee, which is making them essentially not profitable. So understand that as few new loans are being made, and that's why rates have gone up a little bit, costs have gone up, because something needs to offset the cost. And the number one cost that we've seen is the increased cost of capital. Obviously, short-term rates have gone through the roof. Look at SOFR, SOFR. You can Google it, or you can Google prime. Look at the prime rate, what the prime rate and SOFR rate have done in the past 18 months, and you'll see exactly why. So as rates stabilize, but cost of capital goes up, profitability decreases. Declining values due to cash flow issues has been a major impact on the commercial and investment space. Not so much the 1 to 4 family residential, because there's always an end user. There's always somebody that can acquire real estate, maybe with a lower down payment or a 30-year fixed rate. And that's why I'm a big believer, like the real estate market for residential is not going anywhere. It's not dropping. You're owning a tangible home with 30-year fixed rate debt with no ticking time bomb. It's not to say that some households aren't going to be in trouble, because they are. I think more households are going to be in trouble. But those distressed properties are going to be a whole nother asset class that we're going to focus on later on. As we spoke about earlier, the rising cost to do business. Everyone wants to make more money. Insurance costs are going up. Legal fees are going up. It's another reason why you need to learn about this stuff now. And then also there's a lot of new money and new funds being developed for new strategies based on current market conditions. So this is why these loans need to be traded. They need to be traded quickly, and banks, lenders, institutions need to get these loans off their balance sheets. Now, we're going to walk you through the due diligence, very high level due diligence. When you're purchasing or potentially purchasing or looking to purchase investment mortgage debt, great, very limited compliance. But if you're looking to purchase primary debt, like someone's primary resident mortgage on the house that they live in, watch out. It's a whole different regulatory system. You're dealing with potentially the CFPB, which you don't want to deal with. There's different servicing requirements and disclosures. So my guidance that I would give you is when you're looking to make an investment, only deal with investment debt or business purpose debt attached to real estate. It's not to say that you can't be ultra successful in buying primary resident debt and doing loan modifications or workouts, but you better have the right legal team and the right servicing company and know all the laws, or else you could potentially lose not only all of your investment, but potentially get sued for millions of dollars. So keep that in mind. Second thing of due diligence is you need to understand if that note that you're purchasing is amortizing, where principal payments are being made, or interest only. A lot of hard money loans are only interest only. However, most commercial debt has an amortization period. Most, non-QM loans have an amortization period. So every time you collect a payment, you're getting a piece of your principal back. So that's stuff that you need to understand up front day one. Now, understanding state law, it's not a federal game. It's a state game. Each state, once you go across state lines, has different compliance rules. So please make sure you speak to a local attorney that handles investment, non-performing or performing loans that can guide you in the right direction and know the nuances. Because one differentiating law can be the difference of you making a killer investment or you losing money. The other thing is understanding the as-is value of a property and the potential ARV. So when you're looking at the debt that you're potentially acquiring, it's hard. You can't get access to the property because you only own the debt. You don't own the real estate. So do your due diligence of, hey, I'm buying this, first lien mortgage position on this investment property for $12,000 that's in default. Well, I know the land alone is worth $50,000. So that means that you're making a very solid investment in most cases. Now, if the house you drive by it looks like it needs some work, people are living there, maybe it's worth $100,000 or $200,000. Really understand like what worst case scenario looks like. And I always assume on these types of smaller deals that we're going to be showing that you have to assume the house blows up and you're only left with the land, right? We've had many people over the years damage properties, rip all the stuff out of the properties as they're getting foreclosed on. And you really have to go in and do a full gut job. And sometimes homes are worth more by knocking them down and rebuilding them, opposed to going in and fixing someone else's problems that they created.
That happened to me in Jersey.
Happens all the time, for sure, for sure.
So Jeff, though, you said to stay away from primary, though. Is that when you say
non-performing? You guys have to find out, how many, months have gone by that haven't been collecting payments. You have to understand maybe it was once in default. So you really want to get what's called a chain of payment history. I usually look back 24 months. A lot of modifications were done. And this is something that everyone should focus on, and understanding that you're going to pay less for non-performing debt. You're going to pay a premium for performing debt. There's no right or wrong reason. And we'll get into how you determine whether you're going to want to start acquiring either performing or not performing or both, because there's strategies to both. What you need to do is anticipate your hold time of how long your capital is going to be out for. Are you 3 months away from foreclosure? Are you 24 months away from foreclosure? Are you 5 years away from foreclosure? The number one guidance that can be given on that is understanding the law firm that you hire is probably going to be the one to give you the best time frame based on the current legal process. Now, when you buy a note, you have carry costs. Usually if someone's not paying a mortgage, they're not paying the taxes, they're not paying the insurance, you need to make sure that you have a lender forced insurance policy. And you also have to make sure that you're paying the taxes monthly or quarterly. That way there's no tax lien that goes in front of your debt. Also, from a tax standpoint, when you buy the note, if you're paying for the insurance and paying for the taxes, it would be best that costs off on your tax returns. So if you're looking for tax breaks or tax incentives, buying a note and carrying these costs to collect it all back later on is the most lucrative way to do that. Now, in some cases, we've had people buy notes, work out deals with the homeowners, have them deed the property over to them, usually for a couple dollars of consideration. And then when you have that, the nice part of that is you're able to then refinance out your own money, roll in all your costs as a reimbursement, your taxes, your insurance, and now it's equity, and now you're not paying tax on the reimbursement, even though you wrote it off. So there are very strong strategic opportunities from a tax basis as well by getting into these notes. The last one is obviously legal fees. Attorneys are expensive, foreclosures are expensive. I always say you're probably going to be plus or minus $20,000 depending on the state, all in for foreclosure. So if you're buying a note for 10 grand and you assume $20,000 in legal, you're automatically up to that $30,000 mark, depending on the state, if you take it all the way to the finish line. Now, from an investment standpoint, you need to look at these four opportunities. Going into a deal, you have to have an idea of what your strategy is going to be. Is your strategy going to be a cash on cash investment where you're spending $10,000 now to acquire the note, but every month that's going by, you're collecting in the future 2% monthly default interest, where after year one, your $10,000 that you laid out is now arguably worth $12,400, right? Now, after year two, it's worth $14,800. So are you making a cash on cash investment? And then are you going to sell that note? Or what's your overall goal with acquiring that note? Now, many people in this space buy these notes to take the foreclosure all the way to the finish line to be able to obtain the real estate owned or bank REO. You become the bank. So if you buy a property for 50,000 and you have the opportunity to buy the note on that property for 12,000, you're probably better off buying the note for 12,000, taking it all the way through foreclosure, being all in for 20 or 30,000. Now you just acquire that same property for $15,000 to $20,000 less, right? So that's another way to creatively get access to properties at a discount by acquiring the distressed debt. Everyone's probably heard of wholesaling. You can actually wholesale notes. So let's say we come and bring you an opportunity and we know the price of the note's 15,000. You agree to pay 15,000, but someone's willing to buy it for 18,000. Okay, well, if you bring them to the table, you would have an assignment of contract for $18,000. It still has to close in 5 to 7 days, but you could pick up $3,000 without having really any money at risk. We don't like doing that, obviously, because most people can't deliver. But in the event you have somebody that's willing to pay more for a note, because this is all exclusive access, we're not putting this out to the public, obviously our lists for many reasons. It's really for our reverifi community and the community that we're obviously looking to build. The other option is flipping the note. So like, let's say somebody owes $400,000 and we can get that note for $330,000 from our asset manager as an immediate deal. We would go buy that note for $330,000 and then hopefully flip that note out for $350,000 or $370,000 or $380,000 or even $400,000 within that 2-week window. So it's a great way to generate cash flow, and it's a very quick, seamless closing. So the key is having all the end buyers, if you're a real estate agent, know who's looking for what asset. We'll bring you those notes, and then you arbitrage the difference in between. Cherry picking. It's something that's frowned upon because usually these pools want to go, in one shot. They want to get the highest bid, top dollar real buyer to sell all 52 notes in one shot. But what we recommend actually, rather than going and trying to buy one note, is going and cherry picking the deals that you want, making sure that you're paying a fair market value for the entire pool, and then selling off those notes, right, to make your money back, where you cherry pick the ones you want to keep and offload the ones that you don't. By you buying in bulk, it's going to get you the lowest pricing rather than buying one note at a time, because it's now, if you're buying 52 individual notes, it's 52 legal bills, it's 52 payoffs, it's 52 transactions, it's 52 LLCs. Whereas if you do it in one shot, it's one contract, one legal bill, it makes it much easier for the asset manager to justify giving the lower price point. And here's an example of what we recommend. So let's say there's 52 notes. You want to buy 5 of them for $300,000. The goal would be to sell 4 of those loans to get the 5th loan essentially for free. So then that way you lay out 300 grand, you sell 4 loans off, and now you're left with that one note, but you got all your money back. So you have nothing but upside. That's part of our strategy right now. We believe is going to be the most lucrative on the smaller deals. And it also gives you the experience and reduces your risk to zero as long as you're on, as long as you're able to execute that trade. So think of buying, selling, and trading notes as a multi-strategy investment. You can't really go into a deal and know what the outcome is going to be. A lot of people are going into deals, and especially in New York City, have been holding notes for 2, 3, 4 years already. And because of the foreclosure process and attorneys knowing how to jam up, the process and stall tactics, a note that you're planning on holding to execution of the end zone and having the asset be yours is not coming in the time frame that you expected, but you've made double digit interest now for 3 or 4 years. Maybe you want to cash in on your $100,000 profit, sell that note to somebody else, and now you just made a trade, did nothing other than lay out money and take a tax incentive for a couple of years. So understand that, have an idea of what your goal is day one. Understand that things may change as time goes on. The more notes you hold, the more you may need to free up liquidity for yourself. Keep in mind, these notes have to trade all cash. Okay. So there's no financing for them on acquisition. However, we do offer leverage, it's called, on non-performing notes. So if you buy a note where the value is $1 million, you buy a note for 300,000, maybe we'll lend you $150,000 back against your $300,000 cash that you bought for the note. Think of it as like getting a mortgage against your note, a loan against your loan to free up your liquidity. And those rates are obviously quite expensive. They're anywhere from 11 to 15%, depending on the risk. But it's a good way to then have you go and take that money and buy another note. So there are options to get your cash back or a portion of your cash back day one, but each note's looked at individually. So legal tip and guidance. Part of the problems we see is a lot of people like to save money. I get it, but not having the right law firm can really cost you a lot of money. Before even acquiring a note, I always engage our counsel, and we have our in-house counsel that we use for everything to acquire the actual mortgage documents of that note prior to us purchasing the note. That way, they know if there are any loopholes or any issues that could arise throughout the foreclosure process. So engaging your counsel before you acquire the note, getting their guidance, coming up with the game plan, and communicating how long you want to hold the note, how much you're looking to spend, will allow them to work best for you. Chartwell Law is one of our national attorneys that handles our litigations for us. They're great. They handle New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, which are the 3 states we're most active in. So if you need a contact there, we're happy to refer you to our counsel directly. But they'll be able to give you the right guidance day one to handle all of your unknowns. Here's our deal of the day. It's on Jamaica Avenue in Queens. If you look at the left, these are all the important facts that you need to ask. And obviously, we'll be sending this presentation to everybody. But this original loan was done in December of 2019 for $250,000. As of today, 5 years later, almost 4.5 years later, the loan balance owed is now $403,000. It's in foreclosure. The original rate was 12%. And every month that goes by, the loan balance goes up another $5,000. So the original loan was $250,000. The default rate is 2% per month. So you're basically collecting $5,000 in the future every time that another 30 days rolls over. It's also important to know how much legal fees have already been paid. Our asset manager that has this note is just a high net worth individual that pooled about $100 million together. And they have about $8 million of non-performing loans right now that they gave us exclusive access to market to our network because they don't need to sell the notes, but they're not collecting the revenue. So they have $40 million of performing loans right now that are paying, $40,000 plus per month in interest, to themselves after they pay their investors. But every time a loan gets paid off, they're getting less and less and less. So eventually, when that 40 million gets paid off, they're only going to be left with $7 or $8 million of loans that aren't generating any revenue. So in this case, they turned a $250,000 investment into $403,000, and they collected payments throughout the process. So this loan's only been delinquent. I think it was for like 3 years. They paid for like a year, took a year off, paid, caught up. But the other key is understanding that you're purchasing the first mortgage lien position on an investment property, where the estimated value is at minimum 750,000. So even if you bought this note for $400,000 and you want to own this property, you're pretty close to foreclosure. So, on this particular deal right now, we have an approved strike price for $360,000. So if you know anyone or have a client that is in the note game or wants to own a mixed use asset in Queens eventually, this is a great investment, we believe. So it's a 10% discount off of the current loan balance that the borrower actually owes. So worst case scenario, let's say the owner sells the property, you would collect 360 less 403,000. You would make a $43,000 gross profit before legal fees and insurance and closing costs and everything else. So it's a great way to lock in a double-digit return day one. But these are the criteria to the left that you need to know when you're analyzing these NPLs. Sorry, I don't know why that closed out. Give me 1 second. So we came up with our first reverifi certification. It's called the Distressed Debt Real Estate Expert. We also set up a full learning experience and webinar series on School. So the website is ddrexschool.com. You can go to it, join the community, and we're going to be posting all these webinars, tips, and daily underwrites on all the distressed debt that we see. And we think it's going to be ultra lucrative because, look, most people want to get into this space, but they don't know what to do. So one thing we recommend are people pooling money together with friends, family, business associates, and rather than you laying out $100,000 to buy your own note, maybe you get 4 guys to put up 25 and girls to put up 25,000 each. That way, you guys have a little bit of risk, but you're not taking on that full $100,000 liability day one. There are big institutional players out there, but remember, for real estate agents, realtors, brokers, this is the number one way to get listings and to potentially build your reputation in the community, because these toxic debts are going to happen. Usually people that have these toxic delinquent debts go to their real estate agent first, or maybe they go to their attorney first. It's impossible to deal with lenders. It's impossible to deal with servicing companies. It's impossible to deal with many different institutions. So we like to tell you, like, we give you the inside scoop how to approach them. So as part of the certification, we actually tell you how to get in front of all the asset managers. And if you guys are looking for, we could better introduce you to them. So if you come across a potential distressed debt for a past client or a local business owner, maybe we get them to our law firm. Maybe you refer them to our law firm. And then that way we can approach the lender and do a loan modification or a workout or a forbearance. There's so many different options that can allow you to stand out, help people, and make money, that if you're not capitalizing on this right now, you're doing yourself a disservice, right? One thing, we are actually doing a capital raise for note exchange as well, which is pretty cool. But one thing I learned about when meeting with certain investors is there's a big unknown in the space, right? However, look at it like this. You've done how many millions of dollars of transactions over the course of your career, either on the residential side, originating residential mortgage loans, making money on the way up. Well, now it's time for everybody to make money on the way down. While people are losing out, losing money, banks are losing money, consumers are losing money, owner operators are losing money, everyone's getting squeezed out. Don't catch the falling knife. I'm telling you guys, don't catch the falling knife. What you guys have to do is earn while the knife is falling. Because at some point, the knife is going to hit the ground, the knife is going to settle, and the market's going to rebound and be robust, and everyone's back to making crazy money, and loans are going to be performing again. So this window of opportunity is going to run from 12 months ago through 4 years from now. And I think by 2029, we're going to be towards the tail end of it through 2031. But every single person on this call, whether it's Juan in Florida, Justin in New Jersey, Victor at his title company, Chris in Bergen County, Elizabeth between Ohio and New York, right? Everyone knows someone that's going to need this service or need this guidance. And the key is being able to have that educated conversation with them to let them know what their options are and showing them that you're an expert in the space. Because the bank's not going to tell you what we're telling you, right? Attorneys can't tell you what we're telling you. And borrowers aren't going to be truthful and honest. So you need to beat everybody to the punch and say, hey, listen, I know you owe $7 million. I know the bank said they'll help and work you out. Well, eventually the bank's going to leave you hanging. You're going to be in foreclosure, and then you're going to have a personal judgment against you. Let's figure out your solutions now. here are your solutions in order of importance, which the course goes over, and here's how we're going to attack this together, right? If you did 200 million in business, you should be able to do 400 million in business in the distressed debt space alone in the next 5 years, because these numbers have only gotten bigger, and the amount of competition is less than 1% of fraction to who your competition is every day on the street. There's 1.6 million realtors. There's 900,000 loan officers. There's 0.0001 people that are actually on the street targeting distressed debt in this capacity. So that's what I got from a presentation today. I'm going to pull up the list of the loans in the different states. I can't post the list publicly because it's an internal list. I'm going to post the addresses, and I'm going to post the states, so that way you guys could see which ones you guys want. But I'm going to open it up now to questions while I'm pulling up the list. Anybody have any questions?
So for that Chinatown property, if that's worth 750,000, why isn't that owner operator selling?
Great question. You know why? Because he's unrealistic and he has it listed for 1.5 million and hasn't realized that no one's paying 1.5 million dollars, because that investment mixed use market has corrected a minimum 40% and it's probably worth 900,000, right? And that's a great question. So when we give you these addresses, I'm sending myself the list right now, I'm pulling it up. The goal is to go and say, is this property listed for sale, right? Okay, this person wants $300,000 for this $200,000 property, but they only owe $50,000 on it, right? So part of the risk component when analyzing this particular deal in Queens, and look, this is a solid investment for somebody that wants to own a mixed use in Queens. If the guy sells the property tomorrow for 500 grand and you just bought the note for 360, you pick up $43,000 in 24 hours. So like my strategy would be buy that note, approach the actual owner, say, listen, dude, you're in foreclosure. We're close to taking the property from you. Like, what do you want to do here? You know what? I bought the note for 360. You owe 403. Pay me off for 380. Let me make my 20 grand and I'll move on. Right. So that's one of the strategies that people need to really understand is you never know. But the goal is once you buy the note, you want to get in front of the owner of the borrower as soon as possible, because once a foreclosure happens or default happens, the lender and the borrower usually hate each other, right? Let's just call a spade a spade. One screwed somebody over, one lied, right? So like there's friction. You being the new note owner are going in with a clean slate, like, hey, I'm here to make both of us win. What can we do to make this win here? You know what? Hey, how about this? Sign 50% ownership of the property over to me. Now we're 50-50 partners. I'll wipe out the debt. And now let's finish the property, renovate the property, and sell it at a profit, right? It's more of like the critical strategic teamwork thinking. The problem is once a loan goes into default, most people aren't looking to salvage the relationship, and lenders right now don't want to deal with borrowers that aren't paying. They'll work with you a couple times, and if you're like, hey, I'm going to start making the payment February 1st. If you don't make that payment February 1st, full legal onslaught is coming, because people don't have time to deal with people that aren't honoring what they're saying, right? So that's something that you got to keep in mind. Anybody else? Any questions? Kevin, I see the wheel spinning over there. What do you got?
I'm just trying to figure it all out, Jeff. So this is all kind of, this is real new to me. So I just got to study a little bit more, try to make sure everything got what questions I need to be asking.
Yeah, and it's like anything else. Think of it as, you're buying like an option on real estate. That's the best way to look at it, right? You're buying an option at a certain price, knowing that it's worth a heck of a lot more, but the variable is the fluctuation in time, the duration in between. So if you have to hold the deal for 30 days opposed to 5 years, there's obviously a risk that comes along with that. So everyone needs to realize really what the downside risk is. Like I just got an email, I posted it last night, which sparked this webinar today, is I get an email from my asset manager like, hey, we have a pool of performing loans, right, that we need to get rid of. Like, can you help us? That means that they've held those loans for so much longer than expected. They need to cash out. And these are guys that are sitting on an additional $30 million of dry powder, which means that they're seeing other opportunities that could be more lucrative. Can everybody see my screen right now with the addresses?
Again, to get the key there, these are
Yep.
performing loans on the single family homes. The performing loans that you said that's okay.
so this
Non-performing ones you want to stay away from.
So me personally, again, look, Kevin, it comes down. That's a great question. It comes down to what your personal preference is. Like some of these notes that are performing are 12% interest rates, right, with extension fees. So again, I'm giving an example for you. Hey Jeff, I have $100,000. I really wouldn't be upset making 12% on because the bank's only paying me 4.5%. I'm a real estate guy. I'm a mortgage guy. I'm a deal guy, but I also need to make sure my investment's protected, right? Hey, let's put together $100,000 worth of these loans that are performing at 12%. The first thing we would do is look at when those loans mature, meaning when the balance is due, right? Now, let's just for argument's sake say you buy 10 loans at 10,000 each, so $100,000 of exposure, and all of those loans are coming due March 1st, right? And according to loan documents, we have the legal ability to charge a 2% extension fee, right? If this loan gets extended, you're still going to be at 12% rate as like an annuity, but you have to pay 2%. So on the 100 grand, you would collect an additional $2,000 extension fee to keep the 12% rate. If you don't pay the extension fee, you can still make the payment, but now your rate goes from 12% to 24% or 12% to 18%, right? So this is the same thing that's happening in the commercial market. This is why no one's talking about really the problems that are coming. All of their loan docs have extension fees baked in. So the bank's saying, hey, you owe us $10 million. Your rate's going to go from 4% to 7% if you pay 2%, right? If you don't pay 2%, your 4% is going to 24%. And now it's just a matter of time before we take the property, right? So we're in the pretend and extend phase of this cycle because banks don't have new loans. So they're saying, okay, well, as long as Kevin's going to keep paying us monthly, charge him a 2% phantom fee. We go from sub-market rate to current market rate to stop the bleeding, right? And we just picked up 2 points for doing nothing. So when you as an investor would be acquiring these notes, there's a performing strategy and a non-performing strategy. I would rather the non-performing strategy to pick up the 18 to 24% if I don't need the monthly cash flow and I have my strategy with my legal team going in to make sure I know what my maximum exposure is, right? That's how I look at it. So it's still the diversification concept, but it's also understanding like, are you doing this as a cash on cash investment vehicle to generate passive income? And there's nothing passive about collecting payments from people, as you know, right? But there is a passive component to it where people are okay with just paying the 12% rate as long as, you work with them on it, right? So that's a very good question. But let me pull up this list here. I think it'd be beneficial. And again, we'll send out the pertinent details. If you
I
just
have a question, Jeff.
Yeah, go ahead. Yep.
How can you buy these? Do you have to create a new entity, or what type of entity do you need to purchase these properties, these notes?
So you're purchasing the notes. So that's a good question. You can do it in your personal name. I don't recommend it for headline risk or exposure. I recommend you opening up a regular standalone LLC in the state you're buying the note, right? That way you're playing by state laws and regulations. Now, your attorneys might say, look, if you live in Florida, open it up in Florida for tax purposes, but buy the note in Pennsylvania. I would always open up the LLC because God forbid you get sued for an issue and something happens, whether it's right or wrong. At least it's not like Juan Del Sol in the middle of the lawsuit. It's your LLC name, even though your name can be found in the entity agreement, right? I would recommend opening up an LLC. Now, from a tax standpoint, if somebody wanted to do this larger scale, let's say you wanted to pull money together and do $5 million of this specific strategy, you would probably want to open up a REIT, an REIT, for tax benefits. There's additional tax components when you're raising money through a REIT. Look into that based on your state and your accountant's guidance and recommendation. But that's what a lot of the high net worth individuals are doing and where they're deploying money. Because again, if you deploy $10 million in at a 18 to 24% default rate, you could potentially be picking up 1.8 million to 2.4 million per year in the future with tax incentives along the way, right? So on the one-off game, you're probably better off just opening up an LLC and just doing it through like One Investments LLC.
And let's say they, just to be clear, I understand the process. Let's say they refi that note. I guess all that paperwork comes directly to me, or the LLC entity, and I will have to sign off on accepting that.
Bingo. So you have full control. Like you could bake in fees, you could get reimbursed for your taxes, insurance, legal fees. And that's what I even said about this Queens note, right? Somebody who's sophisticated, and I'm not touching anything in New York City right now unless it's a no-brainer inside of Manhattan because of the legal shit that I've been through personally over the past 6 years, 7 years now with it. For me, it's just not worth my peace of mind knowing what goes on behind the scenes. And that's why we have access, right? Because nobody wants to deal with the politics of the BS. Let's just be real. So Juan, what you're seeing is like on that note, you buy that note for 360, you go to the owner and be like, look, we'll lend you a brand new loan, roll in 12 months of payments. I'll give you a new loan for 460, right? If you agree to do this, I'll give you 15,000 off the deal, right? Or whatever the number is. Like this guy should not be sitting here in default for $5,000 a month in default interest with the amount of equity. But he's stubborn, thinks it's worth 1.5 million and is challenging and fighting every step of the foreclosure along the way. And that's why I'm being patient with the asset manager because like I would personally buy this note at like 300 or 315,000. Me personally, right? But the problem is at 360 or 355, if he does pay it off immediately, by the time you pay all costs, it's not worth the risk because there's so much he could sell the property and refinance out tomorrow. So like those are all the factors that you have to go into. I'd rather put $300,000 into something that I'm going to make 24% on guaranteed, opposed to again he's only paying default interest on a $250,000 loan balance, right? If I buy it at 360, I'm not making $7,200 a month because the default rate goes on the original loan balance is 250. So if I lay out 360 grand and I'm making, call it $5,000 a month in default interest, that's not even 15%. That's about 12%, which we're getting on loans that we're doing all day long. See what I'm saying? So like those are all the factors of like how we have to calculate and understand the underwriting of the deal along with the goal of the deal.
Do you anticipate or are you creating a calculator to help us with analyzing this? Because I could see it coming.
We have it, yeah. Keely, what do we call it? Keely, what do we call it? I think it's like the note forecaster.
Yeah, the note flipping forecaster.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So Juan, again, but here's the thing, and you know me, like I'm more of like the one-on-one, like let's talk strategy. Let me give you all the upside, all the downside, and you make, the educated decision. The calculator is only as good as the integrity of the
numbers
data
you put in.
put into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of the mistakes are made. And then that's also where a lot of mistakes that lenders make that we're able to capitalize on. Because remember, it's not their money. All of the lenders and asset managers are doing a job and it's other people's money. So they don't care if they give you back 100,000 or 120,000. They just want to give you your money back. Right? They want to get the problem off their plate. And that's where we've positioned ourselves to help the asset managers that don't want to deal with bullshit where doesn't matter what their strike price is, right? They just know they need X amount of dollars back. Any other questions, guys? All right, I'm gonna pull up this list again. So I'm gonna go through the list real quick. And if you guys see any states you guys want access to, please let us know. Keely, is there an easy way we could have everyone on the call like fill out a quick maybe Google form of what states they're interested in getting NPLs in? That way we know when we get stuff, we can send it over to them right away and put it in our CRM.
Yeah, I can make one.
Awesome. So guys, if you all want, I know we have most of your emails and we can go back on the call, but if you want to just make Keely's life easier, because her life is hard right now, we're torturing her, drop your email that you want this form to be sent to, and just she'll email you over the form so you can fill out what states you guys want access to. So right now, these 52 loans are comprised of Tennessee, Georgia. As you see, Ohio, I think there's a lot of distress coming in Ohio. And you guys can look, you guys are more than welcome to write down these addresses if they pique your interest. Google it, see if the homes are listed for sale, see if they've sold. Skip trace the owners. Like I'm giving you guys free access right now to potential listings that you know are going to be coming about. And we think this is a free way to generate business for yourself and target listings. You have Iowa, Michigan, North Carolina, Illinois, Missouri, Arizona for all the Arizona people out there. South Carolina, Alabama, Maryland, Kentucky, North Carolina, Louisiana, 2 in Texas. Keely, there's 1 in Houston right there. You should check that one out. Kev, you got 2 in Pennsylvania. I'm not sure if you're by. Kev, are you by either Darby or Bentleyville? Maybe not. And then you have Nevada, Oklahoma, West Virginia, Mississippi, Northern Virginia, California, and Maine, right? So my strategy for these notes in particular right now, you want to go to states that have the most amount of growth. So like the southern states, Alabama, South Carolina, you're dealing with a less sophisticated clientele in smaller price points where prices aren't going to drop 40 to 80% because the prices are so cheap to begin with. And a lot of the southern states have much more favorable laws to lenders. Okay. So that's where we think right now is going to be the biggest opportunity, going and taking a $20,000, $40,000 note purchase and figuring it out. There's nothing wrong with throwing $20,000 or $30,000 at an investment opportunity to learn the right way to become the expert. And like I said, why would you want to buy a $300,000 note that you've never done this before and learn the hard way and have $300,000 tied up? Again, 10,000, 20,000. I believe, just on this call, if I said we're putting 100 grand together, I could probably raise $100,000 between 2 or 3 people on this call that I've already raised millions of dollars with, right? But it's more about the strategy and the understanding and getting the experience to know what to look for. So then that way, when the bigger opportunities come about, we already have the process in place and we all know what to expect, right? So that's why we think right now, this is something you guys all need to focus on. And Juan, I hope you don't mind me mentioning this. Juan texted me, I think 2 days ago and said, hey, I have these people in Miami. Juan obviously got his certification last week. He saw an example of a deal we helped on. And Juan, I've done business in the past, but he texted me like, hey, I have these people. They owe $300,000. They ran out of money. They only have the house that's not finished as collateral. They need another $300,000 to complete. I want the listing out of it. I'm like, Juan, we'll give you a referral fee. He's like, I don't want a referral fee. I don't want a fee share legally from it. And that's why we issued a DDREX so we can legally fee share with you, right? You're part of our ecosystem. And in an hour, Juan, maybe after I got all the information, I committed to doing the deal, $875,000. And part of the deal is in our paperwork, it's going to read as part of this financing, Juan Del Sol is required to get the exclusive listing for an agreed upon price point and commission for facilitating this rescue construction bridge financing. And now we work as a team. So by using the knowledge, he approached a client, facilitated and worked out the terms with the client and us directly. And now hopefully by next week, Juan knows he has a $2 million listing coming in Miami. So like if that isn't a success story or a testimonial, I don't know what it is. Juan, if you want to share like what that experience was like or how transparent or efficient it was going back and forth, like I would love to hear it from you.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely puts me as the power player for the client because he actually has the property listed right now with another realtor. So I have to navigate that carefully, of course, but the realtor is not helping on this. The realtor hasn't walked the property and given guidance of what the details he needs and needs to accomplish in order to hit that $2 million resale. Because on a $2 million resale, your details have to be on point. So I spent like 3 hours walking the property, giving him that knowledge, and then saying, hey, let's strategize, let's restructure this, let's get you the money. What's a little scary is that we moved so quick that I think that he thinks this is why I'm having a little time on signing. He's thinking this is too good to be true. This is happening too quick. How can they close next week? Like these guys, and I'm telling him it's all the long-term relationships that we built. You can't get these type of relationships and control on a deal if you don't know somebody who can make it happen. He's not going to walk to his bank and say, I have this problem, help me get out. Oh, here's the list of paperwork, bring it over, I'll see you in 2 weeks. It's not going to happen. So that's the last point that I have to navigate on this, but everything else, it's as solid as it gets. He made mistakes. We're trying to fix it. He used his own money for the construction where he should have never done it. He could have done multiple different strategies. Unfortunately, we didn't know, but we're saving the deal now. And we should close it by next week. And it's a $2.1 million listing.
Yeah, and guys, like that's the whole component of like the education and the strategy, right? We said stalled construction. People want to do everything on their own way. And I've built the last 3.5 years, really it took off during COVID, as you can imagine, of bailing people out of them being the biggest problem. Don't use all your money. Well, I don't want to pay interest on this. Okay, but I'd rather you have a higher interest payment and have $500,000 in the bank that covers 10 years of payments, right? Than you laying your $500,000 out, your contractor robbing you for your money, right? The project taking longer than expected, windows taking 6 months to deliver, your second contractor giving you a quote $50,000 less turn out to be $200,000 more, because at least if you have that fresh capital in your bank, you're in control because you have that ammo. Once you put that into the property, good luck getting out. Lenders right now are not looking for problems in construction. Lenders right now aren't even looking for construction loans, let alone stalled construction, right? Because then there might be execution risk, borrower risk, payment risk, right? So part of our capital solution that I put together for that need in the market is helping people get to the finish line to complete their construction project. And then from there, making the most educated, calculated, strategic decision to start fresh or rewrite their ship, right? So in this scenario with Juan, it's a win-win. We put this guy out of his financial misery. He completes his project. He sells his project for top dollar. Juan gets the listing. Juan has a testimonial. Juan makes X amount of percentage points that's for him to disclose if he wants to disclose. We get a loan. We help them out. Nobody lost here, right? So that's what people need today, is understanding that, yes, we have the number one capital source that moves as quickly as humanly possible if you're real, right? I have deals I've been working on since August where people are real, but they delay, they bullshit. Oh, I thought it was 2 million, not 1.8 million. Well, there's a difference, right? When you have something straightforward and we know all the facts, we can move as quick as humanly possible. Now it's a matter of capital yes, capital no, do the deal, right? And that's what's going to allow people to stand out from the competition in these market conditions where people will pay a premium for speed. The faster you work, the faster the deal gets done, the faster the solutions at the table, the quicker you get paid. And that's the reality of this market right now. And like I said, we have 5 years, we have 60 months of this to capitalize on. And everyone on this call is more than educated to figure out how you capitalize it for your own benefit and best interest. And that's the reality of it. You know, Victor, who's on this call, if you guys don't know, he's one of the owners of Clear Skies Title. Some of you probably have worked with him. Absolute gentleman, really great guy. Him and his partner Victor last year sent us a deal. We came in with some hurdles and we closed a $9.3 million deal from Victor, from the owner of a title company, because he's like, I did all this title work on all these units. We have X amount of premium that we're waiting on, and every lender's dropping the ball. We stepped in, we closed the deal, and now we're friends. Now we have an interpersonal relationship. Now we do business, right? Like, that's the name of the game. So, like, partner with different title companies, give different title companies business, give Victor business, so Victor wants to give you business back, right? When you need a favor, he can reach out to you. When you need a favor, you reach out to him. But if you're isolated to one segment, one lender, one attorney, you guys are hurting yourselves. My personal litigation attorney that I've spent probably $250,000 on, like, in different crap over the past 5 years, gave me a $16 million opportunity that we didn't close because it's too over leveraged on the Lower East Side, because he was handling a litigation for another client who a developer screwed her, and she stepped in to take over a project, right? So, okay, I have $250,000 that I would have had to spend either way. The attorney's become one of my best friends in the world. He just partnered in a new law firm, but because I spent that much money with him, now he has every incentive to make me money back, right? Like, I'm his guy. So when he hears distress or construction or real estate financing, hey, Jeff, here's a $16 million deal. You might make 160 grand on. Like, that's how this business goes around. So if you want to play with the bottom, play with attorneys that charge $600, like, in this market, you want to deal with professionals, litigation attorneys, real estate attorneys, estate attorneys, because they're going to give you the business back, and they have the business regardless of market conditions. Someone's always going to be in a lawsuit. Someone's always going to be dying. So where do you get distressed deals from? People that are involved in lawsuits, litigation attorneys, right? And people who are dying, estate attorneys. That's how you get in front of deals, and that's where the bulk of the wealth is going to be made over the next 5 years. Any questions from you guys? Elizabeth, what do you guys think? By you guys, I mean you.
I know. Well, what I was wondering about, Jeff, is you talked a little while ago about how there's like what 1.6 million realtors and 100,000 whatever, and like there's such a small percentage of people like in this space.
Yes.
Why is that?
I think it's fear. I think it's barrier of entry. I think and everyone else chime in here, Kevin included, Chris, obviously I want to hear from everybody, but think about this. If you're used to making $200,000 a year, every year over year, regardless of market conditions, right?
Yeah.
And now last year transactions are off 40%. And now you made 120,000 last year, right? Just based on gross
Economy.
numbers or reality of transactions. Shit, I gotta work hard. I gotta get back up to 200,000 by doing what I've always done. The reality is there's more people coming into the oversaturated space that are going to be taking more from you. So if you made $120 last year, you're probably going to make 96,000 this year, unless you really knock it out of the park. So they're afraid of the learning curve, and they're thinking, I don't know how to do this. I've been doing this for 10 years. It's going to get better. It's going to get better. Saying interest rates are going to drop is not a strategy to do more business. Elevating your career and developing different earning streams and becoming an expert laterally inside of the real estate umbrella is what's going to separate people. But like when I wrote in my book, people aren't going to listen until they feel that ultimate pain. So when that faucet gets turned off, now they're sitting there like, shit, I better jump on one of these calls to learn about this. But most people don't want to learn. They want to just get up, do what they've always done, and then complain that their numbers are off 40 to 60%. Again, those aren't my numbers. Those are industry public numbers of transaction count decline.
Yeah.
If I have a realtor friend that, constantly calls me and wants to strategize on how to get more business, and, even with interest rates coming down, as we all know, the inventory isn't going to spike. So I don't think there's going to be more deals. It's just going to be done deals at a higher level with more buyers competing. So now, now that I'm learning more about this, I have another thing I can talk to him about now, that maybe, try to get him educated on this so that, he can get better at it, and maybe, help him out a little bit, which then in turn could help me too.
And Kevin, you're spot on. Like, you're a guy, not only do I admire, but like you understand value, right? And bringing value to other people. So by this guy always wanting to strategize, like how many lunch and learns, how many first time home buyer seminars can you do to say, guys, this shit ain't working, right? Hey, listen, you know what? We have access to pools of non-performing loans that have to be sold either now with the consumer or as REO once the asset manager takes it back. Why don't we start learning about this distressed debt game together? So when I get my guy to give me the pool of NPLs in Pennsylvania, I'll pass them on to you. Now you go prospect those listings. What did that cost? $0. What did you just bring? This guy, holy shit, I never thought of that. All right, you know what? I've been meaning to learn about that. Like people right now, everyone's like, oh, I want to become a short sale specialist. Listen, dummy, like property values are only going up. The short sale game, while it may come in singles, it's not coming in doubles and triples and home runs because banks aren't stupid. And with today, with a click of a button, you could say, okay, you owe 600 grand. Great. You want a short sale? Your house is worth 800 grand. You have equity in it, right? So it takes a realtor to find that distressed debt and say, look, buddy, sell your house for 800 grand, less my fee. Take the 200 grand, go rent yourself a place for 3 years, pay for 3 years rent up front, and start fresh.
That's why I another realtor friend that is actually a pretty good friend. I know he really focuses in on his business model is he gets properties give him banks give him properties to sell, and he has to manage them. He has to get he's got key money out there to get the people out of the property. He has to go and take pictures every week to show that the property is still vacant.
Yeah.
He gets the listing and he gets to sell it, and that's what he's been a lot focused on. So the foreclosure market, when it was big, he was doing a lot of business, but with COVID and everything, the foreclosure dried up, and so he's looking for business now too. So I'm trying to figure out how this could play, for him also. So that's what I'm thinking about.
So again, part of the strategy, as you saw, in the DDRX certification, deposits talk, right? So, like I said, like let's say you have $100,000 sitting at JP Morgan Chase or Citibank or your local community bank. Your local community bank, go in there, be like, guys, listen, I have 100 grand with you. I'm in the mortgage business. What do you do with your NPLs? What do you do with your distressed debt? What do you do with your REO? hey, you know what? What if I move another? I'm giving an example, Kevin, obviously. What if I move another 200 grand over to you? Will you give my real estate partner first crack at the next listing? No? Okay, then you go to the next bank. Hey, listen, I got $250,000. I'm in this business. You're making my money. You're making money off my money. You don't even give me the highest rate on my deposit. And now you work your way into, you know what, Kevin, if you bring $250,000 over, we'll hear anything that you have to present to us. We'll give you access to our MPLs. And yeah, you know what? We just foreclosed on this one property. Give it to Joe from Remax. Like, that costs you nothing to do. You're benefiting yourself and you're growing your value in your marketplace. And you're also actually giving the realtor more value, which then you should be able to get the mortgage business out of it without saying in return. And like that's strategy. Like, yeah, you can go spend $10,000 sponsoring an event and you're probably gonna get nothing from it, right? Or you can move around what you currently have and form new valuable relationships that create a win-win scenario. Juan, you got something?
How do we get, yeah, how do we get pricing on these notes? I didn't see pricing.
We have them. Keely, if you could just forward. Obviously, everyone can send that. She'll send you over. We'll send you the full list. We'll send all you the full list, obviously. But
Okay,
we want to
perfect.
know We don't want to bombard people with 50 properties in Kalamazoo, Michigan, if you have no interest in it, right? We want to know specifically what you guys are looking for. So what we're setting up through Note Exchange is a full CRM with Salesforce, where we get the MPL list. It automatically gets uploaded and then segments into where you guys want. Hey, I want New Jersey. So everyone that's part of Note Exchange, DDREX certified, part of reverifi, will be getting those lists first crack exclusively to have basically the opportunity to execute before others do. It's part of our like competitive advantage. But again, we need to analyze the deals in real time and understand that like nothing's falling through the cracks. The other thing is like a portfolio might be available today and gone by 1:30. So understand like if something piques your interest, you have to move as quickly as humanly possible in order to get access to that and actually be able to close on it. We're actually in part of our capital raise, we're going to be having like a true what's called liquidity verified portal, where like let's say you want to buy a note for 12 grand, you put in your banking credentials, it verifies your liquidity in real time, and then when you submit your offer, the lender sees that you have $200,000 available in cash in your bank. You're only buying the note for 12 grand, and then it actually puts the contract right in front of them. So they all have to do is approve it, sign off on it, and now you're in contract without even negotiating or doing anything if they accept your offer. So it's gonna be a pretty powerful tool to accelerate the velocity of the trade. And that's what we think is really going to separate everybody. No different than buying a stock. You buy a stock with a click of a button on your phone. It's the same way an MPL should trade, obviously with the due diligence period in between.
If you had to give an average, like what kind of discount are you getting on the no balance?
So here's what great question. When we try and buy notes, we buy off of the original unpaid principal balance, right? So like the 250,000, the original loan amount, because that's where our investments derived from. Right now, it's trading between the original principal balance and about 80% of the actual balance, including default interest. So right now, they're still trading at a premium on the right assets, Victor, because there's so much capital out there, right? And lenders haven't really felt that squeeze yet, and most of them don't have to unload the notes. So unless they hit their hurdles and returns get reimbursed for insurance, taxes, legal, they're trading above par, which is crazy, still crazy. Yeah. But as time goes on, obviously that window is going to diminish. The real number for like a real investor, institutional, is about 78 cents of the UPB. If you could strike a deal 22% discounted off of the original loan balance, you're hitting a home run.
That's on a performing?
No,
not you can hit 78% of a performing. 78% of UPB on a performing is a good number.
78% on non-performing. On performing, it only depends on what the interest rate is and whether it's amortized or interest only. So like rates right now that, for example, on a performing loan, let's just say fair market rate today on a 30-year mortgage is 6.5%. I don't know what it is, say 6.5%, right? If you have a note at 5% for 30 years, you have a 1.5 per year, basically interest rate duration risk where, again, you have to factor that in. So if somebody's 10 years into a loan of a 30-year fixed rate and you're at 6.5%, and it's a 1.5 a year for 20 years, you have to buy that note on a performing loan, probably 50 cents on the dollar, right? Because now you're buying the note at, let's say it's a $200,000 note, you buy it for 100 grand, but you're picking up interest on 6.5% on 200 grand. So you buy it for 100 grand. And that's where that duration risk is. And that's actually why Silicon Valley Bank, one of the reasons why they went under, for negative interest rate arbitrage. So that's what you have to factor in. And that's why the interest only investment that loans, performing or non-performing, are so critical on understanding the maximum duration risk. Most loans are done in 12-month loans with extensions, 12-month loans with extensions. But if private money rates go to 15% and you have a 2-year deal at 12%, you could be leaving 3 to 6% on the table. So like all that stuff factors in on a note by note basis. Most performing loans right now today are trading at par, like dollar for dollar, or par +2. So you're actually paying a premium for performing loans above 10% today. Yep. Any other questions, guys? Any other thoughts? Did anybody learn anything or not learn anything? Any feedback?
My head hurts, so I know I learned something.
Listen, it's all about every day, like understanding one more piece or component to it. I just know the velocity at which this is going to happen. The floodgates are going to open, and there's going to be a ton of opportunity out there. So whether you're looking to bring these opportunities to others or opportunities to invest yourself, the more knowledge you have, the more lucrative of an investment you can make. So that's what I got for you guys today. I hope you guys all enjoyed it. I hope you guys all get healthy and safe. I know I'm sitting over here with like the flu, pink eye, broken ankle. Like we're good, man. We're getting back at it. But Justin, man, thanks for attending. Appreciate it. Hopefully we could be in touch. Juan, let me know about that term sheet being signed, and everybody else. I wish you guys the best. Please connect with one another. Try and do business. Try and help each other make money. Network, connect. Like just a bunch of good people, guys. So if I can do anything to help you, we're always here.
See you guys.
Thanks, guys.